Welcome to Finding Family DNA, the show about finding and connecting birth families with your host, Jay Rosenzweig, founder and CEO of birthparentfinder.com. And now, here's Jay.
Hi, welcome to Finding Family DNA. I'm Jay Rosenzweig, founder and CEO of birthparentfinder.com. And as always, we have Misty Gillis with us, our genealogist extraordinaire. Misty, we love having you here. We love that you work for us, and I'm so grateful of everything you do. So again, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Jay.
You're welcome. So what I want to tell our listeners that it's really important that you rate and review this podcast. It does help get new listeners. And also, if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe to Finding Family DNA. And Misty, what do we always talk about?
What do we always talk about? Well, we talk about how we are. We talk about cases. What do you mean?
No, we talk about Patreon.
Yes, Patreon.
There you go. So the extra content that we provide goes on Patreon, and we have little tidbits that we don't share on our regular show. And in this particular case today, I have to figure out how I'm going to do this. I don't necessarily want to mention the name of the birth father because he was a high-profile attorney in Los Angeles back in the day. And I know we've talked about this before, and I've shared some of this story and did mention his name, but if our audience wants more content and wants to see a picture of the birth father and a comparison photo of our client and the birth father, they'd have to subscribe to Patreon, and it's less than $5 per month. I guess that's less than a cup of coffee these days, unless you go to Intelligentsia or something like that. But yeah, Intelligentsia, it's my favorite coffee shop, by the way, and I know we have a bunch of them here in Los Angeles. And Misty, I'm sporting a beard this time. If you
I know,
notice.
I like it. It makes you look very distinguished, Jay.
Thanks. I feel a little older, but, like you said, maybe it's distinguished. I'm not going undercover, so I don't have to worry about that. But for now, I'll keep it, and we'll see. But so today's story is about a woman who was born in Los Angeles in 1962. We'll introduce her in a minute. And this is a story, it's kind of bittersweet because the birth parents never acknowledged their relationship or giving birth and placing a child for adoption. Now, we've had cases like this before. I know, Misty, I had to refresh your memory on this case. So what do you want to share with the audience about cases you've had? And I ask you this all the time. Cases you've had in the past where the birth mother just denies it or takes it to the grave. Do you recall any specific cases you've had?
I've had a couple of cases where I am 100% sure that I have the right person, and she adamantly denies that she has any involvement in the situation. And it's hard because I don't want to put any undue pressure on them. If that's something, it's a personal thing. If they want to keep that information, it's private. But I also believe that the adoptee or the child has a right to know things like their medical history. If there doesn't want to be a relationship or anything like that, medical history is at least an olive branch you can extend that I believe every adoptee deserves to know.
And that's the key here. Adoptees need to know where they came from, need to know their medical history. And I know when I tell some of these stories, and I've mentioned this before, people say, mind your own business. This is not your concern. Leave the birth mother alone. Well, sure, we'll leave the birth mother alone, but we want to get the answers first. And on that note, I want to bring in Kim Goff. Kim, we've known Kim for 2.5 years. In January of 2023, we took her case. And welcome, Kim. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing well, Jay.
I'm glad. I haven't talked to you in a while, and we wanted to bring you on the podcast. Now, we could have brought you last year, but we wanted to give you a break, but now this is season 2 of our show, and with Misty now, we wanted to bring you on and catch up on what's going on. So let's go all the way back to 1962. You were born in Los Angeles County. You were pretty much adopted at birth. I know I'm looking at these records that I was able to find that you provided me. Now, your adoption wasn't finalized until you were 8 months old, I believe, right around that. So you were born in Los Angeles. I know you live in Maine now. When did you move to Maine?
Well, my father was from a small island off the coast of Maine. He couldn't wait to get back here from Southern California. So as soon as he could get a tenure track position back in Maine, he moved my mother, myself, and then my brother, Tom, who's also adopted. We all moved across the country.
So you pretty much always knew you were adopted, right?
Yes.
It was not a secret. And about what age did you find out?
Boy, probably, when I could start to really understand. So I'm guessing I was maybe 7 or 8, something like that.
And that's about the right age. I remember the last few podcasts we've asked that question. And Misty, they say about 7 or 8, don't they?
Yeah.
And I think that's healthy.
And my mother had 2 children, so she biologically, so they tried to have children for many years, more than 10 years actually, in California. They couldn't, so they adopted 2 children, and then she had 2 surprises when she was probably in her late 40s. And I think that also facilitated that conversation.
And at what point did they provide you with details about your adoption, your birth mother, your birth father, anything that they had information on?
I believe it was when I was in college, Jay, and I requested it. There wasn't a lot of information, but they sent me what they had. So there was a small pamphlet that was kind of about your child at the hospital that was probably created for the birth mother. I'm not sure. And then I had the non-identifying information from the adoption agency, much of which was incorrect, by the way. And then what else did I have? Oh, the legal papers. And that had my birth mother's last name, which is an unusual last name. So that helped me.
Right. I know. I'm looking at it right now. It's a very uncommon name. Very few people with that last name. And I did remember, I don't know if Misty remembers, that the non-identifying information was not correct. But the last name was. And in the California Birth Index, which I have access to, it had her last name. So it did match. So it was real. And also, I'm moving ahead of myself. The DNA, we'll get to that in a little while, but the DNA showed that, yes, we've had the right person. And I know Misty is working on a case right now where we have all this information on a client, and the birth record is wrong, right? They have the wrong names on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's common, but in this case, she put her correct name down, even though the non-identifying was inaccurate. So I found that interesting. So let's go back to you beginning your search and why you decided to search for your birth parents.
Well, I was very happy in my adoptive family, so I just want to state that up front, that I had lovely parents and siblings. So it wasn't a matter of being unhappy with any of that. But I am quite different from the rest of my family. And I was just curious, I guess, about where I came from, where my personality came from, what kind of talents my birth parents or birth family might have had. Of course, medical history, although when I first started searching, I was younger, so I was less concerned about medical history. 20-year-olds don't think too much about that. Yeah, so that was it. And I'm trained as a librarian, and have always had very analytical positions, a career. And I would just encourage other adoptees to seek out a service like BirthFinder and services like Misty in particular, because it's really hard to remain totally objective, particularly when information is misleading. So it's not as simple as putting together the pieces, because some of the pieces are from the wrong puzzle.
Right. So I remember when we first took this case, you had, I don't know if you used a genealogist, used a third party. Who did you help you find your birth parents initially?
Oh, I did quite a bit of work on my own. That's back when the internet was just getting started, which was a while ago. And then also I hired a private detective who became a really quite a close friend. She had a cottage here in Maine, and I met her in Bangor, which is maybe an hour from home. And she more or less confirmed information that I already had. So finding the birth mother or identifying her was not difficult. The father, however, we made no progress on him at all.
Right. And that was before DNA, right?
Right.
Right. And we had that last name, which was so uncommon. And then when the DNA came around, what did you do?
I registered on, I think, 3 services. So the typical ones that people would register on. And it confirmed much of the information that I had about the birth mother, but the birth father was still tough for me. The genealogy work is really difficult, and I just have to commend Missy for understanding it all, because I still don't, and don't think that I ever will at this point. Just the intricacies of it all, particularly because my heritage, which I didn't realize, is Ashkenazi Jewish, 50%. And so there's a whole endogamy piece with a lot of relatives with all these Eastern European names, and it just confused me, I guess.
And we'll
overwhelming.
In our second segment, we'll talk about how Misty put this together. But I found out and confirmed the DNA first and had Misty confirm it. Right, Misty?
Right.
Yeah. I'm not the expert, but I was able to figure this out by reaching out to people. So did you make an attempt to reach out to your birth mother before the DNA was confirmed?
I did. I sent her letters, cards. With both birth parents, it was really important for me to convey the message that I had a lovely adoptive family, that I'm gainfully employed. We have no financial issues whatsoever. I have no emotional, problems I was trying to resolve. I just really wanted to make a connection. And none of that was answered by the birth mother.
So you sent her letters, but no response.
Right.
And were those letters sent through a third party, or you sent them directly?
No, I sent them directly. I was able to contact a relative of hers who sent me photographs of the family, of my birth mother as a younger woman. And that was a really nice connection to make. It was a distant connection, but she could not have been nicer and more helpful to me.
Right. And that relative, it probably did not know that the birth mother had a child, correct?
No, in fact, what happened is my birth mother just completely disappeared from sight around the time of the pregnancy and has had no contact with any family members that I know of.
And then DNA rolls around. That I remember when I looked at the DNA, and you had, I don't know how long you had that prior to hiring my company. Did you know how long you've had your?
Sure.
Okay, so the DNA showed that her brother was there. Her biological brother showed up.
Who'd been interviewed by the private detective and denied any kind of family relationship with my birth mother. So I think, I think there was a lot of trauma in her life from a young age. And so that's one of the reasons why, I just would never hold any of this against her, and why I maybe understand why she would want to deny things at first. It's just really painful for her, probably.
So I'm going to talk about, in our next segment, we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to talk about my reaching out to some of the family members. So we're going to take a quick break and hear from our sponsor, GEDmatch, and we'll be right back.
What if the missing piece of your family history is just a DNA match away? GEDmatch lets you upload your existing DNA results for free from any major testing company and compare them against a diverse global database. Whether you're adopted and searching for biological relatives or a genealogy enthusiast breaking through research roadblocks, GEDmatch provides the advanced tools you need to make meaningful connections. Discover your extended family network at gedmatch.com today.
Hi, we're back with Kim Goff, who was an adoptee born in 1962 in Los Angeles. And I'm going to get right into who I contacted from DNA to find out what happened with the birth mother. So turns out she's got a brother, and he was easy to find. I contacted him, and the first thing he said to me is, "I don't have a sister." And he hung up the phone. And that really threw me off. So Kim, did you at any point try reaching out to the brother?
I didn't, but the investigator that I hired actually interviewed him and his wife in his home.
Interesting. I do remember that. So I don't know where he lived. You know where that was?
In California, Southern California, I believe.
But did they ever admit that he had a sister?
I don't think he did, but I believe his wife said that some of the information sounded familiar.
You think they were just lying or just didn't want any part of it, or?
I think he was lying. I think she was probably avoiding conflict with her husband.
And this was an interview.
I wasn't
in person?
there, and that was a long time ago. But that was.
Was it in person?
The detective may have had, or the PI may have had someone, a colleague of hers out west, do the actual intake or conversation.
Interesting.
It was a long time ago. Yeah.
That was before the DNA or after?
Before.
Oh, because you already knew who she was and you already figured out that she had a brother. But the DNA obviously...
He had the same unusual last name.
Right, and the DNA confirmed it. So wasn't able to get a current phone number for the birth mother. I knew where she lived. I knew she lived, I guess it was like Santa Monica, West LA, right around there. I don't remember which town. They border each other. And couldn't get a hold of her. Scratching my head, what am I going to do? So I know, Misty, we talk about this as good investigators. When you can't get a hold of somebody and you know they live in an apartment, who do you try to contact, Misty?
Neighbors.
Neighbors. exactly. So I contacted one of her neighbors, and sure enough, this guy was, believe it or not, in the entertainment industry. He worked in reality TV, and he was always traveling. But he said he was close with your birth mother. And it was hard for me to explain to him who I was. He figured it out. He looked me up, knew it wasn't a scam. And he goes, this is very sensitive. She's a quiet person. She doesn't talk much about her past. And I did not know she had a child that was placed for adoption. He said, I don't even want to bring it up to her. But he was helpful. So what do I do? What do I do? I'm thinking, I think with your permission, I went to her apartment. I actually went to a bar mitzvah in the city, and about 3 miles away from where she lived. I had my wife in the car, and I couldn't get in the apartment, so I saw a woman gardening right around the same age as your birth mother, and I said, excuse me, I'm looking for so-and-so. And she goes, that's me. She looked at me, and she goes, I know who you are. I know why you're here. She goes, let me come out and talk to you, because I don't want my neighbors to know what's going on. And Kim, I told you this, she admitted to placing a child up for adoption back then. But she never told anyone, not even her brother. And she's been estranged from her brother. So I don't know, we just still today don't know the circumstances. And I asked her about the birth father, because, and Misty will get into that in a minute, how we identified him. There was a lot of trauma, but she didn't want to talk about it. She did give me her medical history, which was wonderful. And she let me take a picture of her, which we will share on our Patreon. So again, subscribe to Patreon. We will share that photo of Kim's birth mother and also the birth father. But she was really nice. And it's funny, my wife's waiting in the car, and my wife goes, who's that woman you were talking to? I go, that's my client's birth mother. She goes, oh my God, how did that happen? I go, well, timing is everything, right? And so I took this story, and Misty read yesterday of what I posted on my personal Facebook. I posted this story, just my thoughts of this story on my personal Facebook, and I showed a picture of the birth mother. Nobody sees this. This is just my personal Facebook with my close friends, 500 of them. So I had one woman just rip me a new one saying, this is private. How dare you share this information? This has nothing to do with what you do. You've invaded this woman's privacy. And I'm thinking, no, I'm doing justice for my client. I'm not invading this woman's privacy. Do you look at it that way? Obviously you don't, because you're the one who sought her out. But for the naysayers out there, I know Misty, we've discussed this over and over again. The naysayers out there don't like how we approach reaching out to birth parents. And we're giving seminars on this topic. Misty, your thoughts on that?
Well, actually today. So today I reached out to a new client to introduce myself. And he had said that the most important aspect of his search was having a third-party company do outreach. And he said he's just not at a place where he wants to put biological family in the position where they're forced to talk to him or compelled to talk to him. And he doesn't feel like he may get all the forthcoming information if he makes that phone call himself. So he said to him that was the most important aspect of what we do, is offering that outreach service.
Yeah, that's the bottom line. I mean, someone's got to do it, and you can't just avoid it. And we've also had cases where the birth mothers were victims of sexual assault. And in those particular cases, I know Misty agrees with me on this, we will reach out to a family member and said, there was someone in your family that placed a child for adoption, and all we want is medical history.
Yep.
And in this particular case, Kim, that's all we wanted really for you, was the closure in medical history. So now the birth father. So when did you identify who the birth father was? And we could, for this purpose on this platform, we can use his first name. I'll say his last name on Patreon. His name was Abe. And how did you identify that he was your birth father?
Well, there are people, I guess I call them search angels, which they can really kind of be a mixed bag, to be honest with you, on the internet. It's nothing like working with you, Jay and Misty. They helped me sort through some of the DNA information and suggested it might be him. One person seemed very confident it was him, but I didn't have the personal confidence, in part because I don't understand how all the genealogy works. I just wasn't completely sure I could trust them or trust the information. So that's, I started to get his name on my own, but it was really the two of you who helped the most.
Right. So I basically pretty much confirmed that who was your birth father, but I'm not the expert in DNA. So I go to Misty. Misty, help me out, confirm that this guy, Abe, is the birth father. So Misty, I know you refreshed your memory on this today. So just the rehash of how you did this.
There was a cousin, I believe it was on 23andMe, that had about 5 to 6% DNA shared with Kim. And so that equates to about a first cousin once removed relationship. So that means the match's great grandparents would be Kim's grandparents. And so once we had built out the tree, that way we were able to determine there was only one possible person that fit in that position, and that was Abe.
Abe didn't have any brothers, so we knew he had to be the birth father, right?
He had one brother, but the match was descended from that brother.
By the way, he was alive at the time. I forgot how old he was. He was alive, and I reached out to him. No response. Usually, so first thing I did was you send someone an email, you send someone a phone call, text. I had all that. Then I sent a letter, my form letter from my firm. I got nothing. I had his current address. Guy lived in Beverly Hills. Guy had money, Hollywood money from back in the day. And we'll get into that on our Patreon. But no response. I reached out to his daughter. No response. He had several daughters. They're all on social media who reached out. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
And I reached out, Jay, as well. I know that you asked me not to at the time, but I did.
Okay. At that point, I didn't care.
And just sent him a couple of magazines that had pictures of my gardens. And again, explained about children and grandchildren and my career, and wanted to reassure him that I wasn't after anything financial or emotional, but just wanted that connection.
I contacted his best friend. This was a best friend from way back. This was after he passed away. I guess he passed away about a year and a half ago, maybe, I'm guessing. Does that sound about right?
Mm-hmm.
So I contacted his best friend, and I sent him, we did an interview with you about a year and a half ago, kind of the same format. And I sent him a copy of the interview. And the guy goes, "Oh my God, she looks just like him." He was going to contact the family for me and say, "Hey, there's an adopted child out there. What are you going to do about it?" So the guy never got back to me. Again, another one who never got back to me. I don't know if you have closure from him. We'll get into this in our last segment, but I'm going to take another quick break. Hear about birthparentfinder.com. So we'll be back in a couple seconds. You're watching Finding Family DNA with Jay, Misty, and Kim.
This is Jay Rosenzweig, the founder and CEO of birthparentfinder.com. If you're looking to find your birth parents or anyone in your birth family, give us a call at 866-572-3463 or go to our website, birthparentfinder.com.
And we're back with Kim Goff. And I was just talking about reaching out to the birth father, got no response. And it was really difficult for me because thousands of cases, 99% of the people get back to me. And when you have thousands of cases, there's always going to be a couple that don't. And this is one of those cases that the birth father nor anyone in his family reached out. So again, you got to stick around for Patreon because we're going to cover a lot of things in there that are confidential, the public doesn't know about. And there's things about the birth father that are very interesting that go back to the 1970s and 1980s and even the 1960s. And we have our feelings about what happened here. And it's I don't like to use the word ugly, but a lot of it could have been ugly. So the birth father, Abe, we'll get into his last name in the Patreon. Abe was a Hollywood attorney, represented people like Jack Nicholson. And he was very, very well known. And he probably had a lot of money, which obviously didn't interest Kim because obviously you do well on your own. And I would imagine this was the reason why the birth father and his family wanted nothing to do with Kim. I see no other reason. Maybe he fathered other children, but if he did, those children didn't take a DNA test because Kim was the only child that was connected with him. We didn't see anybody else. I don't know if you still have your DNA results, but nobody else popped up in the last 2 years?
I haven't looked, to be honest. I'm not sure.
But by the way, your DNA is no longer in our account for some reason. Not that it matters, but you should take a look at it once in a while. You never know who's on there. So over the past years, you processed all this. You've got limited information. You got to see what your birth mother looked like. You got to know that I met with her, and she's glad that you're okay. And I would imagine your birth father knows that you're okay. He saw your picture. So after all this, what are your thoughts about this whole thing?
Well, I'm really glad that I used your services, Jay, because it really helped to bring, I think, as much closure as possible to the situation. It was a little difficult that my birth parents didn't want contact with me. I didn't feel rejected at all. It wasn't that. It was just a little frustrating after so many years of looking, and feeling like maybe we, all of us missed out on something as a result. But I think, based on the information that I uncovered about my birth mother and in a different way about my birth father, I think all of that gave me a much greater appreciation of the kind of trauma that people can go through and its lifelong impact. So that's good. I think it makes me a more compassionate human. And, whether I'm talking to a birth mother or an adoptee or adoptive parents. And it's really been a journey.
And how many kids do you have?
Decades and decades of searching.
How many kids do you have?
I have 2 of my own and then 3 stepchildren. Okay,
so did they follow this journey with you?
They did. Yeah, some are more interested than others. I have to say the women seem more interested than the men overall, almost without exception when it comes to, friends I've shared this with or any relatives.
It's funny you mentioned
that. That is.
In our last episode, we talked about why more women are interested in this stuff than men. Right, Misty?
Yep.
Yeah, and you did a good job of explaining that, Misty. But is there hurt feelings on their part or your part, or is there something missing? Is there an emptiness, or are you whole, or how is that?
Well, my identity is really based on my adoptive family. So I wouldn't say that there's an emptiness. No.
Well, you're a strong person. And by the way,
still about things.
I would say, I don't like the percentage, but I would say 30% of our clientele, if there is rejection, it haunts them the rest of their life. It's just, and some of those people probably should not have searched for their birth family because we kind of knew it might not go well. It's the first thing we tell people. I don't know if we told you that, that it might not go well. And this is a case I'll never forget because I was able to meet your birth mother and she let me take her picture and send it to you. Again, we're going to share that on Patreon. And obviously your birth father, he was all over social media. And I think you look a lot more like your birth father than your birth mother and his kids.
I do have photographs of my birth mother when she was a college student at USC. She was in dramatic productions and plays, and we have the exact same body type. I will say that.
Oh, wow.
It's interesting. I'm looking at, because we get a lot of our information of ancestry, and I'm looking at the California voters registration records from 1962, and your birth mother, registered Democrat, the address she has is right at USC. And that's where she was living. And that's where the birth father, he was a graduate from USC. He went to undergrad and law school there. He was a big donor at USC. Like I said, this guy was very well known. So Misty, you processed this case over the last couple of years. Why do you think this was such a big secret on both ends, birth father and birth mother?
It could have been as simple as rejection on the birth mother's part, like perhaps Abe did not want to continue a relationship with her.
And that's your feeling, but I got to tell you what my feeling is that just based on talking to her briefly, that they were not in a relationship. There was a circle of people that they hung around with, and one thing led to another, and she got pregnant. And by the way, I don't even think she realized that he may have been the birth father. That's just how, and I told Kim this, I don't think she knew that he may have been the birth father.
That would make sense.
And I don't know what kind of work she did. Do you know, Kim, what kind of work she did?
No, that's another thing that's really strange is that she has almost no digital footprint at all. I mean, you can find her address online, but no social media connections. no court cases, no employment history that I could find. And
no, exactly. And she lives in an
the
apartment.
work I've done, I can always track people down.
Her apartment is in rent control, so she probably doesn't pay that much. And I'd imagine she's still alive. I mean, her and Abe were, I think she might have been 2 years younger, perhaps, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I think there were a circle of friends, and she probably did not know that this guy, Abe, was the birth father. But I did mention his name to her, and she goes, vaguely. She just didn't want to talk about it. But the key is, look, she provided me with much needed medical history. I don't remember what that was. We don't need to discuss that here. But were you able to get any medical history on the paternal side from anyone?
No.
But we knew how he died, right? I think I told you when I spoke to his friend, didn't he mention how he died?
I think the obituary said a brief illness, but I don't know what it was.
Yeah, I think I was able to get that. But when I contact people, they seem to shut down. And we're going to talk about it on Patreon. And we'll get to Patreon in a minute. But anything else you want to share before we end this?
No, I just want to thank you. Thank you both for your help with the case.
You're very welcome. And Kim, it's always good talking to you. And thank you for being here. Misty, thanks as always. And I know what's our next episode? We run these every couple of weeks, and we'll provide a great story for you next time. Until then, that's it for Finding Family DNA. Have a great one.
If you want exclusive bonus segments of these episodes, join our Patreon at patreon.com/findingfamilydna. And if you are looking to start the journey of finding your family DNA, just go to birthparentfinder.com. Thank you for joining us on Finding Family DNA.